Leasing. I've talked about it before, but now I'm actually going to be straight and tell you why I hate this disgusting practice. Now, before we get started, I'm going to tell you that there are rare occasions where leasing a truck is a good idea, and we will talk over that. But what I want to really talk about, and this is not about the drivers who do this. Most of these guys, they didn't know any better, or we'll discuss that. This is about the predatory business practices that a lot of these companies employ to basically get a contract employee at a company price, and that company price has an extreme discount for them. And I want drivers to be aware of what they're getting into when they sign on that line. I've been at this 20 years and I've seen horrible things happen with leasing, and I absolutely hate the practice. Well, in this video, I'm really just going to break it down for you why I hate it completely. Now, y'all have seen the ads, you know, especially new drivers. If they're coming straight out of school, they see all the ads in the trucking magazines and all that, and they want to trust their first job. They want to assume that this recruiter and their first job and the guys who helping them get going have their best interest in mind. No. You've seen the ads. Be your own boss. Make big money. You can own your own truck. You can blah, 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 blah. Pick up a trucking magazine that's full of this tripe. It's worth just slightly more. Well, I was going to say it's worth slightly more than toilet paper, but not really. The leasing predatory practices is they get brand new drivers. They explain the ins and outs. Now, mind you, this guy hasn't been a day out, ain't got a dime to his name. But they say, you're going to make good money. You're going to make a lot of money. You're going to make a good living. No, you won't get rich, but we've got your back. And they talk a guy into a lease who's never owned a truck. A lot of these kids have never been out. It's just, if you read the lease contract, it's awful. And we'll go over the lease contract here shortly. But coming right into recruiting, they are all over you on a lease with a lot of these big companies. First of all, you need to go over the contract. And if you go through the contract, which nobody ever does, you really need a lawyer to go through it and about 2 weeks to study it. It's serious. But they won't give it to you. They want you to read the contract and sign it in 10 minutes. But if you go over the contract, you're going to see lots of clauses. You will have, being a lease truck, you will have no freedom with the truck. You will have, you're going to get your base pay. You're going to get a percentage of the fuel mileage. The maintenance, they're going to have very strict maintenance protocols and all that. You're basically renting a piece of company equipment, and they're basically extorting a job out of you to pay for, you're buying a job. And if you go through your contract, you're going to see that the truck's really not going to be yours. You're going to be making a lease payment, and you're not going to get anything out of it. And I'll tell you one of the little tricks that I've seen used over and over and over again, especially with a lot of the mega companies, is that they'll get a guy into a lease truck, they'll run him real hard for 2 or 3 months, and then they'll start slacking off. And people want to say, oh, it's the economy. No, it's not the economy. I've seen this happen too many times over 20 years to believe that it's the economy. What's going to happen is it's going to slack off, and they're going to be like, you know, you can make a little extra money if you train. You want me to lease a truck and then train a company driver? And for what? An extra $100 a day? You know, or all miles moved, or whatever they do, it's not going to be worth it. And they are going to expect that truck to move. They basically want a lease truck with a team in it. And I've seen this happen over and over and over again. So you're already not making money, and now you have to bring in random people into your truck to train so you can make a living. Well, so you can eke out a living. The difference between lease driving and owner-operator a lot of times is the pay. That's one of the big differences. Most owner-operators won't work for mileage. They're getting screwed. If you're working for mileage, you're getting screwed. I've seen this happen too many times. I remember being at a Kenworth dealer, getting my radiator repaired, talking to a lease driver out of Texas. He drove for the big blue trucks with the red lettering out of Dallas. And he told me what he was making. It was, oh good night, it was 17 cents less a mile than what I was making. And basically they figured out a way to get him close to $1 a mile. And just how? I was making $1 a mile plus the fuel surcharge on the national average. And at the end of the year, I managed to eke out $16,459. And for some reason, that number has been imprinted in my mind. That's why I quit the last job. I wasn't a lease driver, I was an owner-operator, but they were running us all the same. The dirty little secret is the national average. And when it comes to the fuel surcharge, these loads pay a lot better than they're letting on. My surcharge on a lot of these loads is rather high. And what a lot of lease companies will do when it comes to pay is they take a percentage, or they'll give you an average. And if your company is taking 50% of your fuel surcharge, they're robbing you. That's not their money. You're the one paying the fuel. You should be getting 100%. But that is not happening at a lot of these places. And they'll say, oh, we pay you loaded and empty and pay the tolls. Well, yeah, that's all fine and dandy. A lot of companies aren't doing that. A lot of them are just paying the base plates, the tolls, and the mileage, but they're not paying the deadhead. My last company paid the deadhead, but it wasn't worth it. I still came out behind. You know, I'm making a lot more money being a working percentage now than I was working mileage. This is one thing you have to consider. Now, another way they get you is that those leases are never designed for you to own the truck. Yeah, if you get a brand new truck, they'll have, like, one company has a 7-year lease, but they're going to force you to trade the truck in after 3. Oh, you've got a lot of miles on that truck. We'd feel more comfortable if you would trade that truck in. And we have a brand new truck coming in. So you re-sign a lease and you're stuck in another 7-year cycle. Now, a lot of these companies are letting guys lease used trucks. They're selling them for $79,000, $80,000 for 3 years. Let's do the math. So you have a truck. You're paying, it's going to be around $780 a week. That's reality. So $780 times 4. It's $3,100 a month. That is actually a little cheaper than some of these guys. I've seen guys paying $33 to $35 a month for their trucks. So we're going to times that by 52. Yeesh. Wait a minute. Okay, I meant to times that by 12. So 780 times 52 equals That's $40,056 a year. So if you're giving a 3-year lease for $40,056, let's times this by 3. You paid $121,680 for a used truck. That's why I don't like leases. People don't do the math. And you need to also remember, you're going to have $65,000 a year in fuel, depending, give or take. I've had as high as 72. I've had as low as 58. It just varies. But on the average, you're going to have $60,000 to $65,000 in fuel. So you have to take that out. They're going to promise you mileage. Now, they say it's not a forced dispatch, but we all know it is. Because chances are they're not going to give you any option but leave it. And if you leave it, they're going to sit you for a day or two. And they're not going to say it, but you're going to know you're being punished. And have that happen once or twice, and you won't do it anymore because you're going to be out. So you just paid $121,000 for a used truck. Plus, there's a catch. Most of these leases, especially with the new ones, have a balloon payment. And after 3 years, especially with the balloon payment, you're going to have a buyout of about, I've seen them as high as $40,000. $40,000 balloon payment. You want that truck, or do you want to re-sign a lease? Oh, by the way, when you re-sign the lease, you have to get a new truck. You know. Now, don't get me wrong, there's guys that have figured out how to do it, but most of the time, the guys that I've talked to that have figured out how to do a lease have managed to do it with outside financing. They've managed to buy the truck and be done with the company and go on to bigger and better things. Now, there are a couple times when leasing is a good thing, and experienced drivers know how to work this. I've known guys that have gotten into a lot of tax trouble, and they've actually used a lease as a tax write-off. Now, you can write the whole lease payment off, unlike me, who's paying on a truck with interest. I can only write the interest off of the payment. So, sometimes, in particular circumstances, a lease does make sense. Or if you're only going to be doing it for 6 months, or if you just need a truck for the time being, or this is never a long, if you're going to lease a truck, do not expect to own it. You're leasing it for a particular reason, and that's it. Now, there are guys that go out there who've been doing it a while and got tired of being owner-operators, and they do lease a brand new truck every year because they want the ownership experience, they're making money, but at the same time, they want to buy a brand new truck each year. That does make sense. So, oh, good grief. So, it does make sense to them. In a lot of ways, it doesn't make sense to me, but, you know, guys have found a way to make it work. But these are guys that have been doing it for a while. These are not guys straight out of school. So, they have a good grasp of what's going on. That is important. So, you need to watch that. I could go on, but you kind of get the drift. One of the main reasons I hate isn't even all that. It's because it takes advantage of someone naive. They're predatory business practices that ultimately end up hurting a driver and run good talent out of the business. That's the part that I hate. There's a lot of talent that goes out the door because of predatory business practices like this. These guys go broke. Their credit is destroyed. They're 22 years old. That's the part I have a problem with. And guys are like, well, they should have read their contract. No, they trusted you. You told them a lie. And that's another reason I hate a lot of recruiters too. But that's why I hate leasing. I touched on it a bunch, but I've never really just sat down and said, this is why. That's why. Because these kids don't know any better, and they're being taken advantage of by people who do. And in return, you get a lot of broken dreams, you get a lot of heartache, you get a lot of bankruptcy, you get damaged driving records, and you run a lot of talent out of the business. I thought we were worried about turnover and everybody's worried about recruiting, but nobody cares about retention. You're running talent out of the business if you're leasing somebody a truck, because chances are they're going to trust you enough to use your tax man, and he's going to screw you too, because they just don't know any better. You throw brand new drivers to the wolves and they get eaten, especially in a lease program. And at the end of the year, when they have to pay their taxes, they don't know any better. A lot of them don't. And they end up broke, owing thousands of dollars in taxes, with a horrible taste in their mouth, because this was the worst experience of their life. Because some predatory company decided to use them. That's why I hate leasing. Now, I hope this video doesn't sound like I was rambling. It's just, the business practice just makes me very angry. It hurts a lot of people in the long run. Leasing fundamentally there's nothing wrong with it, but the way these businesses use it, it's just twisted beyond what it needs to be. So this is why I hate leasing, because I see what it does to people, and it does nothing constructive. Very, very rarely does anybody ever come out ahead on a lease. It's just a bad deal. And I want people to know that. I want people to be aware of what they're getting into. That's part of why I'm doing a lot of these trucking videos, is because I want guys to have a good head up before they go in there and talk to that recruiter. I want people to see the crap. I just want people to be safe and be profitable out here, because that's why we're out here. You know, this job can be a whole lot of fun, but it can be a complete heartbreak if you get stuck with somebody who's going to screw you over like that. So be safe, be profitable. We'll see you next video. I hope this has been informative. I didn't want it to sound like too much of a ramble session, but I'm sorry if it did. So be safe, and we'll see you next video.